I am excited to sit down and have another Zoom talk today. And today is a very special guest that I get a chance to talk to because we're talking about personal development. And this person has an insight about personal development that most of us don't have, from her profession and the things that she sees every day. I'm sure she's going to be able to share with us some things that are going to change us and, just help us build on what we're doing. So, Robin Menifee, tell people a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Oh my gosh, the pressure. So you said that I was going to give some insight. So hopefully someone takes something away from it, some nuggets from today. Hello, everybody. My name is Robin Menifee. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I help people is what I do simply. I always see the post, tell someone what you do without telling them what you do. And my biggest, my favorite one, I should say, is I get to be nosy. I get paid to be nosy, or I get paid to help people come from one place in their life to the other. That is my favorite thing to say, because that's what I get to do. I get to watch people transition from a place of concerns, a place full of just different challenges in life, to a place of knowing how to deal with those challenges in a very healthy way.
Okay, good deal. Sounds interesting to me. And, today I want to really talk about personal development and kind of start with your own life, building a business. I know you're a mother, so all of that, all of those wonderful things. What has your personal development journey been like? And, what type of growth have you know for a fact you had to make?
My journey has been pure heck. I don't curse a lot, so but I will be honest.
Let's be honest. That's what we want. We want
Yeah.
honesty.
When people like paint the picture of entrepreneurship as this pretty, beautiful, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I don't have to go into the office every day, it is not pretty at all. Like I just said before we started, I just had to take a little short nap before this, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're on all the time. There's no such thing as days off. And so I started my journey back in 2016. I started as a personal development coach, and I transitioned into the field of therapy, being a licensed professional counselor. And it has been bittersweet. It has been more sweet times than bitter times, but it has been bittersweet. It is challenging. Every day is a challenge. Every day you're trying to learn and you're trying to grow as a human being. You're trying to make sure that you're balancing. That's the biggest thing. Like I said, the nap, that was my way of balancing. I got up, I climbed Kennesaw Mountain this morning, and then I came home, ate a salad, and took a nap. So, because those things matter when you're doing this, those things are important. They're just as important as making sure that you have clients, making sure that you are educating yourself so that you can be there for your clients at the same time, making sure you're there for yourself. So it's a balance.
That's a big deal because what you just talked about was something that I talk about all the time. It's the internal and the external. And a lot of times, when we're building businesses or even if you're building a career, we focus a lot on the external, the grind, the hustle, the keep pushing, the sleep when you're dead, can't stop, won't stop, all of those things. And we allow that internal part to just be neglected, and that sounds like you've taken that point to grow, personally, to where I know I need to take a nap.
Yeah,
I know I
absolutely.
need to rest. Was there a time that you didn't feel that way?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially I saw, and I always go back to the post because there are so many things that float around on social media. But
Mhm.
I saw a post that said, therapists are here to help people through this pandemic, through the what was it called, when they stormed the Capitol,
Mhm.
through just all of these different life changes. But then we're all going through this ourselves at the same time.
Very
And
true.
so knowing how to balance with things like that, when all of this happened, the pandemic and everything, I went into action. That's when I was transitioning from working full-time to full-time private practice.
Okay.
And so just that transition alone was pretty tough. And then on top of that, momming, you know, being a wife, being a business partner, being a human being, like just being me, that is hard to do, and still try to juggle all of these things. You know, you hear people say, oh, you have so many balls up in the air. I had a lot of balls up in the air, and I had to learn that it's okay to put one down from time to time. And the world's not going to stop if you put one or two of them down, and knowing which ones to put down, how to prioritize those balls. When I was going through my transition, I was probably running on fumes. And how can you show up for clients if you're running on fumes yourself? How can you sit there and say, you know, you have to practice self-care? What are you doing for yourself? And you're yawning in between sessions, or drinking coffee, or, you know, doing whatever you need to do to stay up. And so I learned to create a strict regimen for myself to be able to show up in my best form for my clients, because ultimately I'm doing them a disservice if I'm not making sure I show up as my best self. So
I agree. You brought up two things that caught my attention, but the first one, I'll go back to the other one, because the other one is COVID, and we'll talk about COVID in a minute. I don't like COVID, but anyway, you talked about self-care, you know, and self-care is a term that I use, that we all use today. You know, everybody says it. You need to self-care. It's become another one of those cliche type statements that everybody knows. But what does self-care really mean, and how do you do it?
yeah, I love that question, because especially with my new clients, I'll ask them, hey, what do you do for self-care? And it's always like this deep thought. And then they say, well, you know, I try to take baths from time to time. And then I try to, like, they're looking for this big, like, this angelic experience. And that's not what self-care is. Self-care is just making sure you take care of yourself. I had someone tell me, I wake up with joy every morning. And that's my self-care. Something as simple as that, because just like you just said, you hate COVID. We have to wake up every morning and face another day about COVID-19 and the vaccines and all these things. So choosing to wake up with joy is self-care. Choosing to not indulge in something that's not going to be beneficial for you, that's self-care. You know, choosing, just choosing that's self-care. Choosing not to be overwhelmed is self-care. My natural self-care.
That's really good. I mean, for me personally, it got to a point to where I don't want to hear nothing about COVID this week. I'm not watching any updates. I'm not watching the news. Don't talk to me about it. If you bring it up, I'm gonna change the subject. And people are like, why? Because a part of my self-care was, I know enough about that right now to where I don't want to bombard myself more and more and more with it. You know, so self-care, in my opinion, can be, how do you feel? And a lot of times we violate how we feel for something, you know, violate how we feel because we want to do this favor for a friend, or we violate how we feel because it's the right thing to do, you know.
Boundaries are so important through all of this. When we had to go through the presidential election, we were going through, like we said, the pandemic, we were going through all of these things. I don't know if you saw the Netflix special, Death to 2020. Did you see that?
I saw the preview. I didn't watch it because I felt like I already killed 2020. So
let me tell you, you have to watch it, because especially with people like us that have to make sure that we put certain things in a box. I didn't realize how much we went through in 2020. Like, it was so much more than just COVID and just Black Lives Matter. And it was so much. And to see that we were able to go through all that and still be resilient enough to say, okay, here we are, February 15th, 2021, we're still smiling, we're still showing up, you know, that says a lot about where we are. But like you said, to your point, with being mindful of what you allow in yourself. So I'm a big person of, be careful of your words, be careful of what you eat. But at the same time, when we say be careful of what you take in, that's the same thing with social media. I reference it, but it doesn't mean that I'm on it often. I may scroll, every now and again, but I monitor my social media. I monitor my television. I don't watch a lot of news. I don't do a lot of that stuff because all of that stuff will also affect you in a negative way. And so you do have to be careful of that as well. I think
I agree. And since we're on it, let's talk about social media, which, we all have a love for social media to a degree. I mean, I understand today the power of it as far as building and connecting and all of those things. But you do have to sometimes say that's enough social media, that's enough. And I think it can be a balance. I don't think you have to necessarily, here's the thing. One size doesn't fit all. So a lot of things that I'll say, or maybe even you'll say, people that are watching, you got to be able to figure this part out for yourself. So some people need to take these huge social media sabbaticals to where they get on and they make an announcement and they say, I'm leaving, if y'all need me, somebody shoot me an email because I'm leaving for 60 days. I'm like, just do it. We don't need the announcement. But if you need that, do it. But I think you can have a balance with that. Like, it should not be your end all cure all. I've had clients that have told me, RJ, you don't really watch the news. How do you stay informed? And I'm just like, the news finds you, in my opinion. Like if you have a phone, if you even open it, I'll get a notification for something if something is terrible going on. Like with the White House deal, I wasn't watching the news that day. My phone was blowing up from text messages from people like, hey, you see what's going on? I'm like, no. All right, let me see what's going on, but there can be a balance. Talk to more about, I guess, the balance of like social media and the balance of what you take in versus what you shouldn't.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that stuff because now, what was it? When CNN, I believe, came out, that it was the big thing about having the news 24 hours a day, right? Mm-hmm. Who needs the news 24 hours a day? Who needs this continuous loop of negative information 24 hours a day? Nobody, because all it's doing is it is filling you with more negative information, making you choose sides. Are you blue or are you red? Are you with the right or the left? Are you with, did you see what they did here? Did you see this? I heard one recently, and I got this one from my group chat, and it was something about a 12-year-old boy being killed or something like that. I can't fathom that stuff, and so I was really careful about even paying attention to those text messages that were on my phone. I literally scanned it, and so you really have to be careful and be mindful of that. My own, I guess you want to call it, social media journey or whatever you want to call it. I will take days that I don't go on it, and I'm okay because I'm not missing anything. Like if someone really wants to contact me, like you said, this whole big production of I'm leaving social media, and if you need me, I won't be on here. They all know if they need to contact me, like seriously, I have my phone. You can text me, you can call me, because there was something, prior to social media called calling people on the phone. And so if you really need me, there are other ways to contact me. The only thing I really use social media for is business or memes. That stuff make me laugh. Like
right.
Laugh.
Social media is fun. I just treat social media like you mentioned eating habits. I don't think any of us are 100% perfect with eating habits, but you can't eat fast food 7 days a week.
Hey, I tried it. It don't work.
It don't work. I tried it too in the past. It's definitely not what you want. And the older you get, it doesn't work. So, you know that. So just like if you like fast food, you may have it on the weekend or whatever the case may be. I think we have to treat social media and even our own self-care the same way. Like if you've been going all week long, you might want to relax for the weekend. You might want to take a Saturday and go, hey, I'm not replying to emails. If you call me about work or business, I'll talk to you on Monday. But a lot of times, like you said, a lot of people don't set those boundaries in their own, own personal development.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. You made a good point about being careful of. That's another way of saying this is your self care. I realize that I'm seeing so many clients in a day, and I'm taking in. I'm letting people come dump on me. And I love letting them dump and leave their stuff on me because I know what to do with it, and if that's what it takes for them to be able to continue on their day, come dump on me, please. Dump it all in my lap. I'm going to package it up nice and put it in a trash compactor, and I'm going to put it up somewhere. Right. And how I do that is I see clients Tuesday through Friday, Saturday is none, Sunday is none, and Monday is none. And I make sure I stick to that. Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, I'll let a little bit of business stuff, come through, but Sunday, no business stuff, no anything. It's just me and whatever I'm going to do that day. And then we'll get back up Monday, because you have to have that day where you turn it off for just a moment. That's one thing that I tell my clients all the time, like, we're not robots. We can't stay on all the time. We have to have that moment of just checking out, turning off, so that we can hit that reset button and then continue on. It's that old cliche of you have to put that mask on yourself first before you help anybody else. So.
And to a point that I make all the time, because I think people hear me say it and they go, they kind of hear it. But this is a licensed person telling you guys that all of the sound bites that you hear, like, you can never stop. Yeah. I literally heard somebody say that on social media the other day. If you're an entrepreneur, you can never stop. To stop means that, you're lazy or you got to keep grinding it. Why are you sleeping? Like, all of these things that don't really make for practical living. You know what I mean? You have to figure out how to have a balance and how to have rest and all of that good stuff. But in changing gears and going back to COVID, my question was, seeing clients now dealing with COVID, the pandemic, and everything that we've seen with that, do you find that your therapy and your counseling and what you're telling them is different during COVID?
I don't think it's different. It's more challenging because before, where we can say, where we had more freedom. I mean, just bottom line, we had more freedom before to do and do more. Right now we're limited on what we can do, so we have to be creative. When COVID first started, it was so many clients that say, well, I don't like working out in the house. We're gonna have to figure this out because we don't know how long this is gonna last. And here we are a year later and it's still going. And so, we may have more access in some states, in some cities, to more gyms and things right now, but some of the states and cities are still completely shut down. And so we're gonna have to figure this out without going crazy. I've seen an increase in, I hate to say, but suicide, because we're stuck in the house. We have to be stuck in there with our thoughts without sometimes without having human contact with, other people, depending on your living situation. And so you really have to be creative during this time. And that's what I was pushing, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, is, well, what can we do? No, we cannot go to the gym. No, we cannot go and, go out to eat with our friends. What can we do? That is big with me. What is in your control? What can you control? That's my big thing. What can you control? And whatever that is, whatever that's going to look like, we're going to create a plan around that.
Yeah. And some people really need to figure that out. Like, what can I control? And as you mentioned before, COVID made us sit quietly. And that's something that I talk to people about a lot. And that's learning to sit quiet, learning to meditate, learning to be kind of one with yourself. How important is that in your opinion? Because if you don't do it and all of a sudden you're dropped in COVID, you're in trouble because you don't know how to be alone with you in a sense. So
I reference people a lot because I'm the professional, but I learn from others as well. And so it's not, if I felt like I was going in and I'm gonna teach you everything, I'm not doing a good job. And so I listen as well. And I heard someone say once, if you don't like being around yourself, why do you expect someone else to like being around you? So if you can't be around yourself, then you know, how can you expect other people to be happy around you? And so learning to be learning to be by yourself, first of all, and be okay with that. And then learning to find your own happiness. You teach other people how to treat you. So if you don't know how to treat yourself, if you're not pouring into yourself, how are you going to teach other people how to do that? As well. And so that is just as important. It's important to take that time out to have a moment for yourself. Just like my walk in Kennesaw Mountain, that's my time to say, okay, no kids, no husband, no clients, no friends, no nothing. Like sometimes I'll have my AirPods in and listen to music or podcasts, and sometimes I just don't want to hear anything. I don't. It's so bad sometimes, RJ, that I'm like, okay, let me see what path I can go on where I don't know where no one's walking towards me, so I won't even have to say hello to anybody because I just want to just turn completely off. And that's it. And you have to do that sometimes so that I can be in session and, hey, how are you feeling today? You know?
Right. Yeah. And so you find that, and I think this is important because a lot of people, whether you're a licensed counselor or a coach or not, a lot of people, we're always continually pouring into somebody else. I always used to tell clients, the biggest givers are typically terrible receivers.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you can give, but you don't know how to either find the people that can pour back into you, or you don't know how to pour back into yourself. And I think one of the biggest things is learning to pour back into yourself, because you can't always rely on another person to do that.
Absolutely. Listen, my heart goes out to the most during this time are the parents that have children that are elementary, middle school. I mean, just all through school, but elementary and middle, and then especially like the toddlers and things like that. Because first, these children are stuck in the house, so they're not able to socialize anymore. Right. So they're like, okay, what's going on? I don't know this feeling that I'm feeling, but it's not a good feeling. Because we're humans, we socialize. And then we have the parent on top of that that's trying to either juggle working from home or still being that essential worker that still have to go out and come back home to their family. Their family's been there all day. So they're like, oh, mommy or daddy's home. Yay. And they're like, oh, mommy, daddy, let's give me your attention. They don't have that chance to be able to turn off. So those are the people that I talk to as well. Like you have to find that time or you're going to go crazy, because you can't be on out there or on in front of a computer all day and then still feel like you're giving your family that quality time as well. So I think that's important as well as cut off.
This brings me to an interesting question. And I know a lot of people, when we talk about therapy or we're talking about going to see a counselor or a therapist or whatever, a lot of people still have these stigmatisms in their mind that says, I'm not going to see a counselor because if I do, that means something wrong with me. You know what I mean? Like that's just not something you do.
Yeah.
Two questions. Why do we still think like that today? And what would you tell somebody that feels like, nah, ain't nothing wrong with me, so I don't need to see a counselor?
Yeah. So number one is I don't tell people anything because it's not for me to convince anybody of anything.
Okay.
I've seen an increase in my couples. Of course, it's COVID. We're in the house together now. We're stuck together. Okay.
Like, I really need to know if I like you.
Exactly. And so typically it's the husband that is like, I don't even know why we're here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to talk about my feelings or whatever. And I just say, okay, well, just stay with me and we're just going to go through this. Typically by the end of the first session, they're like, okay, when are we scheduling our next session? So it's not me telling them, it's just me inviting them. Hey, let's just have a conversation. Let's just talk. And we're going to work through whatever it is that we're working through, but it's not going to be me sitting here with, I don't have any props, but sitting here with the book saying, well, tell me a little bit more about that. What do you see on this ink blog? Or, that's what people think when they think about therapy. They think that it's going to be me sitting there psychoanalyzing you. No, it's not that at all. It's, hey, let's talk about this. Let's get through whatever it is that you've been repressing, that you've been holding in. That stigma, that is a conversation that we don't have time for in this, time that we have together. So, but that stigma is so deep within our community that it's disheartening But at the same time, I am seeing a shift. I am seeing an increase in more African Americans that are telling their family, "Hey, my therapist said," or
Yeah.
"Hey, I have my therapy appointment, so I can't talk to you today." And I'm glad that they're spreading this. It's spreading a lot more than what it used to look like. It's getting a whole lot better than.
No, that's really good. And you mentioned something that I've just had a conversation with a good friend of mine about. We're talking about is personal and spiritual development different for men, and you said usually, it's seemingly the woman initiates the therapy. The husband comes because he kind of got to, because he don't want to piss her off, but in the midst of that, he kind of starts to open up. What have you seen as a counselor, as a therapist, as far as men are concerned? How hard is it for us to just kind of be vulnerable and bare all?
Yeah. Yeah, so majority of my clients are African American females,
Mhm.
but I do have a handful of males that I see as well. And I think with me, and a lot of them, some of them came by themselves, and some of them, their wife was like, "Yeah, you need to see a therapist. So here, go see a therapist." And I think with me, with how I converse with them, as opposed to, again, trying to, "Hey, tell me how you feel about that." We don't know about feelings. We know
Mm.
happy, sad, angry, and that's it.
Wow.
We don't know any other feelings. We don't know any other feelings. I'm just going to say that. And so
Mhm.
telling them, or let me change that, because I don't tell people anything,
Mm.
but showing them that it is okay to have feelings, first of all. Because first we're taught, what, don't you cry like that with you little girl,
Right.
don't you show your, we're
Men,
that's
men don't supposed to do that.
no, not at all. So
It's not manly at all.
exactly, showing them that it's okay to show feelings. There's a way to show feelings without feeling like you're demasculating yourself or anything like that. Showing them that there's a way to communicate. That communication is important. That your life can be a lot happier with your wife, with your children, if you communicate. Showing them that meditation is a thing. It's not just for old white people, that are,
Sitting on a yoga mat and
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
I agree. It's all of the stereotypes of things that we've been told, not understanding that you still need to take advantage of a lot of these things, but it may not look like the traditional thing that you've been told. Like most people would think, if they go see a therapist or a counselor, they're going to be laying flat on the couch, with their eyes closed, saying stuff
Right.
about their life. And I'm like, listen, I don't, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen anywhere, but I haven't met too many therapists today that when you go into the office, they go lay flat on the couch. Like I hadn't seen that. So we got to break those myths of what we think it is.
Absolutely. And I even think that even with the pandemic and us being able to do it virtually has
Mhm.
created a whole nother platform, because we're in the comfort of our own home, or I've seen clients in their cars or wherever they're comfortable, and they're
Mhm.
not driving, just for, you guys know, for my license sake,
Driving
sure they're
therapy is
not
different.
driving.
I'm just playing.
Yes,
I'm
they
just
are parked. So,
right.
but I've seen clients everywhere, wherever they're comfortable, in a safe place, that they have their sessions, and they're more willing to open up a whole lot more, a whole lot easier than they would have been in a traditional on the couch across from each other setting, a
Mhm.
lot of times. But yes, no lying on the couch. I do hypnotherapy as well. And even when I'm doing hypnotherapy, I give my clients a choice of, if you like to lie down or if you like to close your eyes, you can, but you don't have to. And so
Okay.
that's a whole nother ballgame.
Now I would be wrong if I didn't ask you to give just a little insight of what hypnotherapy is, because I'm sure somebody heard that and was like, "You going too far." Like first you told me to open
Absolutely.
up, but now
Yeah.
you're talking about hypno. Talk to me.
Right.
So
Right.
what does that entail?
I'm not gonna make you bark like a dog or any of that stuff that you see hypnotists do on TV. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
I love hypnotherapy, and I perform two different ones: hypnotherapy and something called EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. What both of those do is, we all have this big brain. I love the brain. I'm trying not to get too nerdy on you, but I love the brain. I love how it works.
Educate us.
So we only use a small percentage of our brain. And what, especially in the African American, I'm guilty of it as well. In the African American community, we learn how to repress. We learn how to, okay, we have these microaggressions that we are facing. We have these issues that we are facing. We're not getting paid the same as our white counterpart. We have to put on this code switch when we go out in front of certain people. We have all these things that we have to deal with. And what do we do with them? All right, life goes on. Let's keep it moving. You know, we have this trauma that we endured as a child. We have, you know, the lack of whatever our life didn't give to us as a child. We have all these things that we're facing. We still have to keep going on because we don't have time to feel. We don't have time to, you know, think about it. We just stuff it down and we keep going. So what happens is it'll come back up as anxiety, depression, anger, all of these different things. When your child drops something on the ground and you're like, ah, don't do that, you know, yelling at them.
Right.
It wasn't that big of a deal. You just help them clean it up and that's it. But because we repress so much, that's how it comes out. And then guess what we do? We teach that child, this is how you're supposed to react when something doesn't go the right way. And so through hypnotherapy and through EMDR, we just go back into the subconscious mind and we find out what we're repressing. What is it that we are keeping from coming to the forefront? What are we not dealing with? And we reprocess or we process those traumas so that we can be able to function as I don't want to say normally, but we can be able to function in a healthy way.
Okay. No, that's really good because, you know, for all of y'all out here beating your kids because you mad and it's, you know, you gotta go get help with that. In the words of Cat Williams, your baby's supposed to like Skittles. You beating them every time they touch the Skittles, like, you know, but those are things that we push down because we go into survival mode.
Absolutely.
You know, and I can speak to that as a man because the other part of that is you're supposed to figure it out and you're supposed to keep going. Absolutely. So you don't have time to deal with it made me feel bad. Like, don't nobody want to hear that. So you gotta keep going. And this is something that I've found helpful for me. A lot of people will say, well, why should I talk to you, RJ? Why should I talk to Robin? You know, I don't care that you guys are licensed or did this. It doesn't matter. I got a sister. I got a cousin. I got a mama. I got an auntie. I got why. And I always say, it's not that I'm saying that those people don't have your best interest at heart, but it's something about talking to somebody that's non-biased. They do not know you. They can't bring this up later. They can't use it when it's convenient for them to use it again. What do you think the biggest thing about talking to somebody that's non-biased, and how does that help people more?
So it's a two-part thing. I want to go back to the part of you mentioning how, as an African American male, how what did you just say, RJ? How it was something to the fact of showing your feelings, you know.
You're taught to survive and you're taught to keep it moving, so you don't have time to pay attention to your feelings and how it made you feel.
My husband was, and I always use him as an example, so he's used to it now. But he is the poster child of being able to suppress and not show feelings. He had a very traumatic childhood, and so he grew up to raise two boys of his own. And guess what he did? He taught them, hey, don't show your feelings, don't do this, don't do that. And so getting with the therapist, he's like, what? You want me to talk? What? You want me to show my feelings? But I did it in a non-evasive way. I wasn't saying, you know, hey, tell me how you feel. It was, you know, just a normal conversation. And over the years, he's learned that, hey, you're safe with me. We all have traumas. And I have my traumas, you have your traumas. Let's figure out how to do this world together with our traumas and without beating up on each other. And I had a conversation with him this past weekend that you just reminded me of. He said he was talking to his son and he told him, you know what, it's okay to show your feelings sometimes. And it's
you like this stuff works. It's working.
It wasn't me beating them over the head saying, show your feelings. It was just me saying, hey, this is a safe place for you to be able to show your feelings. One thing I always say, especially when it comes to us, period. Everybody, I'm not just going to say African Americans, but everybody, we go out into this world, and this world is a hateful, cruel world if you're not careful. Mm-hmm. And then we have to come back home and deal with our families and things like that. I heard a country song. Yes, I'm a Black woman that listens to country music, but I heard a country song, and the guy in the song says, you know, he's out there in this world, and when he comes home, all he wants is his beer, his TV, and his woman. And he said, but instead he gets all of this other stuff. And but that's what we have to deal with. We go out there and we have to deal with this world, and we come home. We have to learn to create this safe space for all of us to be able to thrive in. And so being able to not only stay in survival mode, because that takes us into this whole other fight or flight situation that we can probably bring up later, but not knowing how to turn off survival mode when you get in the house, because again, we're not robots, and so we can't stay in survival mode all the time, but we're taught that we have to stay in survival mode all the time, and that's why all of these things are coming up, you know.
And that makes me ask a question of, you said a safe space, and what I've been kind of playing around with and working with clients with and working with myself on is, in a relationship, not just husband and wife or spouse, significant other, but in all your relationships, you can't just say it's a safe space. You have to demonstrate it's a safe space. And what I've learned for me as a man, and some men might be able to relate, is that we have feelings. All of the stuff that we just don't tell you is still going on in our minds. It's just that we're cautious about saying it, because we're also trying to figure out why I don't match what society said a man is supposed to be, this unrealistic thing that society says a man is supposed to be. And also, if we let all of this vulnerability out, how will you use it? Right. How will you judge it? How will you criticize it? How will you bring it up later? All of those things, if you violate that, doesn't demonstrate safe space. As just as a professional, and also being in a situation, what do you suggest people do? Not just tell this other person this is a safe space. What do you suggest that they do to keep reiterating that this is a safe space to share?
So one of my biggest things, and it's something I had to learn personally, is communication. Effective communication is really, really important. So it's not always just what you do, it's what you say as well. And being clear as possible to whoever it is that you're talking to. So when I teach communications in my sessions, I always teach that early on. When I'm first, you can come in and we can be talking about depression and trauma, but I'm teaching you communication because it's important for you to be able to tell or communicate that with somebody that, hey, and I'm gonna clean it up in a minute, so just hang in there with me. But hey, I've had this trauma, and I can't show up the way that you need me to show up, and so I need you to just hang in there with me or work with me so that I can show up with you on this. And the way that I do that, it's not going in and saying, hey, you know, I was molested by a child, and so when you say these words to me in the front office at work, it triggers me, and this is what happens. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to go into that deep of a communication, especially like in a professional setting or anything like that, but being able to assertively say, hey, when you talk to me in this tone of voice, it makes me very uncomfortable. And so I would appreciate if we teach I statements in therapy. And so, mm-hmm. you know, I feel, and insert that emotion word when you speak to me like this. Or, you know, I was in a, prior to transitioning into full-time private practice, I was in a predominantly white, you see a lot of white faces in the place that I was working in before. And I could have allowed them to kind of, I guess, I don't know what word I want to use, RJ. I could have allowed them to dominate me in this setting. However, when I was leaving, it was pretty heartbreaking because I actually stood up and spoke up and was very assertive. And it wasn't me going in with the whole, and y'all ain't gonna do this, and y'all ain't gonna go sassy, angry Black woman attitude. But
you had to give them the sauce.
Absolutely.
No sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. I just spoke in a very assertive tone and an assertive manner, and just let them know, hey, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what I expect, or whatever the case may be, and making sure that you're clear when you're communicating with other people. That's in a romantic relationship, professional relationship, children. I have to come back and do that with my children a lot of times. Even though they're adults and young adults, I have to make sure that when I'm communicating with them, I'm doing it in a way that they understand, and not only on my level, but on their level as well. So everybody.
I've learned the hard way that what you say is not always heard the way you mean it.
Absolutely.
Like it blows my mind to this day, because I have said some things to where my whole heart meant it this way.
Yes.
And this other person, typically somebody that's of the opposite sex, is like, heard something that was 900,000 degrees different from what I said. And I'm just like, how? Absolutely. How did you get that out of that? Yes. And you have to learn, like you said, you have to learn to communicate better. You also have to get good at communicating with that specific person and how they receive certain things, because we've all been raised different, and we've all been trained to hear things different. We all have different perspectives. So yeah, that's a real big deal.
One of the biggest part of communicating is active listening. And that's a huge part that I teach my couples, because usually when you're talking to somebody, that other person is preparing for the response. And instead of preparing for that response, you have to actually stay there and listen. I always use that old cliche, we got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We have to listen twice as much than we talk. And so making sure that you're listening to whoever that counterparty is, whether it's your partner, business partner, whatever, whoever you're listening to, making sure you're listening. Whether if you're placing an order at McDonald's, making sure you're listening to what they're saying, so that your order is going to be right when you get to that window.
Okay. So this might be my own personal counseling session. I might have to edit this part out. So lean in. Are you saying don't prepare for my response? Because I be thinking,
no.
Not supposed to say when you finish it. Like,
because what happens when you're preparing your response is you're not listening. You can't prepare your response and listen at the same time. So you're actually listening. So what?
I'm learning right now. I'm sorry. I'm at a total loss for words. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So what I teach my couples is I'll make them face each other, and one of them will tell. We do wish lists a lot, because usually you come into couples counseling is because you're having problems with each other. Okay, so what do you wish that you can change, or what do you wish could happen? So one partner would say, "I wish," and whatever their wish is. The other partner's job is to either, while they're active listening, to summarize what that partner says, or to ask clarifying questions. And so before you're ready to respond, make sure you say, okay, what I hear is, and whatever the hearing is. Now, we're talking to Black people. So they're like, I don't talk like that, Robin.
That ain't how I do it.
Yeah, that ain't how I talk. So I let them know, just as long as you let your partner know, this is what I heard, and ask them whatever question. So are you saying that blah, 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 or am I correct that, however you talk to your partner, but just not in an aggressive way, if that makes sense. But you never listen to respond. You listen to.
Right. So here's my question. This just for me. If y'all don't get nothing out of this part, then do with this what you will. So what if she keeps talking? Like her talking is like 25 minutes, and I want to listen, but I also don't want to miss what I need to tell you in this exchange. Should there be like a side out rotate, like you talk for 7.8 minutes, side out, my turn, before I forget this point? Because I don't need to be thinking about my point as I'm trying to listen. Are there rules to that, or I'm interested. I need to know.
So one thing that you said, and I want to take you back. It was maybe like 20 seconds ago. You said, if she's going on for 25 minutes, what am I supposed to do? And you gave a example of can I do this? Do you remember what you just said?
What did I just say? No, I think I was just more so saying like, can I, because what I'm trying to do, like you're saying, is not try to think of my responses, but as time goes by and a person doesn't let you in, then I do start thinking about my responses, because it's like, I don't want to forget what it is that I want to convey, but you're going on and on and on and on. So I don't get that opportunity to kind of get in there. So
what you said was, you said, can I say, hey, I want to make sure I'm getting it. You said it so eloquently. When you play this back, you're going to be like, oh, I did say that.
Let's hope.
You said, can I jump in and say, hey, I want to make sure I'm getting everything that you're saying. So let me make sure I understood this part before we go on to the next part.
But you interrupted me. Don't interrupt what I'm saying, because I got.
So it's another thing that I give to my couples called fair fighting rules, because you can't. What couple isn't going to fight? So to say that, hey, I'm going to teach you how not to ever have an argument again, that would be a lie. But what I am going to do is we're going to teach you how to fight fair. And there are rules in fighting fair. And so I make sure that I pass that out to all of my couples when we're going through couples therapy, because we want to make sure that your point is being heard. That's assertive communication, that one party's concern is being heard, the other party's concern is being heard, and you guys can come together to figure out what's the best way to move forward. Okay. Doesn't mean you're going to always agree, but it's coming up with that best way to be able to move forward. So yeah, you can interrupt that person and say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. I had couples come in and say, but he'll just keep going and going and going, or she, either way. And they, I'll say, that is a concern. Did you hear what your partner is saying? And so making sure that you provide little information at a time so that it won't be information overload. Again, we're not robots.
So my counselor said I can interrupt. That's all I want to make sure.
Right.
I might name this whole thing as I can interrupt when I feel that I need to. No, but that makes perfect sense. The other thing that, I don't work with couples. I have been in that position over time, just because somebody was going through some type of personal development thing, and that part of their development involved their significant other. So it was no way for me to kind of get around that, because I couldn't speculate what this other person felt. So I had to bring them both in. But the thing that I value today is communicating early, because I think a lot of times there'll be something going on with us and we won't say it. We won't effectively communicate it then, and we'll let it wait. We'll let it build. We'll let it fester, and then it comes out. And typically when it comes out later, it comes out in the worst way possible. So is that something you agree with? Like, if I feel it, I need to say it now and not wait.
Absolutely. And I'm always open to being transparent. I just went through that in my own relationship recently, where we were holding something in and we thought we were doing the best, and I'm going to stay out of her way because she's building her business. So I'm not going to tell her that, she's kind of forgetting about me. Well, he's over there, he's chilling, he's watching TV. So I'm just going to leave him alone. I'm just going to keep focusing on my business. And here we are, not paying attention to each other. And then it built, just like you said, and it just blew up. And all we had to do was have a simple conversation. And now we're like, life is so much better now that we've talked.
And to me, it's easier to have a conversation right then, because you're not necessarily mad about it right then.
Yep.
What happens, and I'll just speak for myself, what happens when I don't say it is that I get the time to play it over in my head. And unfortunately, in my head, I play both sides because I don't have your response. So I give your response for you.
Absolutely. We're good.
And your response that I give is probably not the response you would give. So I come up with all of these things to say back. And basically I have the conversation with both of us in my head, and it just doesn't work out like that. So when you communicate early, like I said, you can do it without it being some type of conflict. And on top of that, I believe, and this is for me, I'll speak on behalf of some men, for women, just talk. Just talk to us. It don't have to be a special day and time. It don't have to be a set aside. Because if you tell me we need to talk later, I ain't coming home. Because I hate that. Like, I'm definitely not coming home.
It's up already. Oh heck.
Yeah. Because it's it's gonna be bad. Like anytime. And maybe I don't know if women feel the same way, but I know for me, you know, you could probably come out better like beat me up than to send me a message and say we need to talk later. I'm like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, what's going on now? What did I do? What
I'm
did I do?
definitely gonna try not to talk to you later. Basically. That's gonna
Absolutely.
be my whole job from that point on, is
Absolutely.
not to do it. But I think if you just communicate with people and say what you mean in a I don't want to say in a nice way, but in an effective way that's not offensive.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
some people don't know how to not be offensive though. So
Yeah, and but like you said, knowing your partner, knowing whoever that counterparty is that you're talking to, you know, whether it's professional or romantic, you know, knowing who you're talking to and knowing how to communicate in a non-offensive way. People know how to do that, but they just choose not to. You know that you can't go out and I'll give you a prime example. So we go back to the child that spills something, and the child, you're like, oh my God, you spilled that. Da, da, da. When you go to work, you're not going to talk to your boss like that. It's going to be a whole different conversation. So you know how to do it. You just choose not to do it. And so I think that communication is important to know when and where and how to do it. And then going back to your point about having that communication up front. So now that him and I have had that big blow up, now we see how important it is to communicate up front. So instead of saying, you know, I'm going to go and hang with my friends or go and do whatever I'm going to do, instead of doing that, hey, you know, do you want to hang out this weekend, or do you want to do something this weekend, or hey, what are we going to do this weekend, prior to just going on about your business and just assuming, because
right.
you know that's how things have always been, you know. So that communication up front is much better and very important.
So 2 questions, and I'll leave you alone. But the first one is you talked about something that I've been having conversations about. How important is it to turn off the way you communicate, let's just say at work or in your business, when you come home with that person? And I'll tell you why I'm asking is because what I've talked to a lot of men about that have, you know, wives or significant others that are the assertive voice at their job. You know, they teach kids all day, or they're the assertive voice because they're high up in this company, or they own their own business and they are the quote unquote boss. What a lot of men that I've talked to have said is when she comes home, she doesn't turn that off and she tries to talk to me like she's governing me, and that ain't gonna work. And we end up getting into arguments and fights. And so how important is it for you to say, hey, I gotta be this here, but when I come home, I need to take some of that off?
That is so important. I've worked with probation officers that will come home, female probation officers that will come home and try to talk to their male counterpart like that. And that's not okay.
You can't. That sound bad. So
yes, you cannot do that. You people get kind of in their feelings when you talk about roles and gender roles and things like that. But there's a such thing, you know, if you're in a heterosexual relationship and you have a man and you have a woman and you feel like the man is the man of the house and you feel like the woman is the woman of the house, then know your position. You can't come in trying to be the man of the house if you're the female, and you can't come in trying to be the woman of the house if you're the female. Even in the same sex, you know, relationship, if you know that you are the submissive partner and then the other partner is more dominant, then play, you know, be in your position, you know, whatever that may look like for you guys. But you can't confuse those roles, because it's not going to work. You know, you fell in love with this person. A lot of times I ask my couples, you know, what was it that attracted you to this person? And they'll say all these things, which is totally different from that person that they are today. And so, you know, remembering who you once were, you know, and why did it change, and you know what happened. Is it because of work? Is it because of outside factors that you just didn't realize you were carrying in with you? You know, making sure you show up as that person.
That's good. And goes back to communication. If somebody tells you that you're doing that, you can't be so defensive to say, no, I'm not. You know, and I think respect is something that can transcend all, in my opinion. If you just really get that respect level, and that goes for, you know, men and women. If you have that respect level and say, hey, I got to communicate to this person in a way that's not offensive. I can't always be, you know, dominant or picky or aggressive or criticizing, or, you know, I have to communicate to this person in a way that they can actually receive it, you know, because if you don't, what results do you really get?
Would you want to listen to somebody if they're saying, "Oh my gosh, every time as soon as you come in the house, oh my gosh, every time the trash is always, supposed to be taken out every time." I wouldn't want to listen to that every day. So, ask yourself if you would want to listen to that every day. Yes, your partner may not be doing what you're asking of them, but there's a way to communicate that. And it's definitely not nagging them and staying on them every day about what they're not doing. Tell them what they are doing. Sometimes that can go a further way than badgering them about the negative things.
Yeah, I agree. And last question is, let's just say somebody is out there right now, they're dealing with life, COVID, work, business, all of the things that kids, all of the things that we deal with. What would be their first step, in your opinion, to getting help with a counselor? What do they look for? How do you find a counselor, other than pick Robin? But,
Yeah.
but how would somebody find a counselor? What am I looking for when I'm looking for a counselor?
So whenever I talk to any referrals, I don't try to convince them that I'm the therapist for them. What they usually do is they'll look at my bio. My bio can be found on different platforms, on different websites, things like that. I encourage clients to look at lots of bios before choosing a counselor or a therapist. Go and talk to that therapist and see what kind of feel that you get. Schedule an appointment with more than one therapist, especially if you have insurance, pay for it. But get your feel of that therapist. I always tell referrals that picking a therapist is like trying on a pair of new shoes. You're not just going to be like, "Oh, yep, this is it. This is the shoe I want," without looking at the size, without looking at the cost, without looking at all these things. You might put it on, walk around in it, get the feel of it for a little while before actually saying, "Okay, I'm ready to purchase this shoe." Don't be afraid to send those pair of shoes back if they're not what you thought they were. Sometimes you may get into a session and you may get a couple of sessions in and you may say, "You know what? This doesn't feel right." I always encourage clients to talk to their therapist once they do find a therapist that they feel like fits their needs. Let them know, "Hey, I'm not getting this out of therapy because of whatever the case may be." I've had clients tell me lots of different things, and I'm receptive to that because I want to make sure that they know that this is their space. This is their safe space. This is their space to dump whatever they need to dump here and then leave. And so making sure that they read all of the information that they need to know on that therapist, making sure that it's cost efficient if they're paying out of pocket, because one of the things that I see a lot is that, "Oh, I can't afford this anymore," or I can't. We might talk about, how many times you go get your nails done, how many times you go out to eat. And then you're like, "I can't afford therapy." Making sure that it's affordable to you so you won't have to start and stop and things like that. But there are so many different things that that comes along with making sure that the therapist is a fit for you.
Okay. And I think, like you just said, a good counselor, a good therapist, a good coach is also somebody that initial conversation, if they don't feel it's a good fit, a good person is not going to try to convince you that they're the person. I've had tons of consults with people, and just for whatever reason in that consult, I'm just like, I don't know if this is the best fit. And I'll say that. I'll say, "Hey, listen, I feel I could probably help you, but you may want to seek somebody that's, more proficient in this, or somebody that's more proficient in that. I think that might be a little bit better for you," and kind of go from that point.
Yeah, if they were coming to you for, like you said, you don't see couples, and they're coming to you, they're like, "Yeah, I'm having this problem in my relationship," then you would know, "Hey, it's not my niche.
Yeah. I had something a couple years ago when I was in person practice, sitting with people in person every day. I had a client, or a potential client, come in. We sat down, and he had been prescribed certain medications for certain, chemical imbalances. And, based on what he was saying, it was a good vibe and everything. But just the more he got in depth, I said, "You know what? I think you going to see a licensed doctor that could test you for, I don't know what kind of test for these medications, and figure out if it's time for you to stop. That'll be a better route. Take care of that. And then maybe on the back end, you can come back around to me." But that's not something, obviously, that I deal with. I can't prescribe you anything. I don't know if that's something you should stop doing. So yeah, so you have to be honest with yourself as the professional, as well as, it needs to be a good vibe and a good fit as well.
Absolutely. You're so right about that. And as the client, making sure that you pay attention before you even reach out to them, see what's in their bio. Like I literally have it outlined and bullet pointed that these are the things that these are the areas that I work with. And if you don't see your area on there, then it may not be a good person to reach out to. Or like you said, I may be able to help you, but let's go this route first. And so if someone did reach out to me that they had a diagnosis that I don't work with, hey, why don't I try to look at these referrals, or hey, I have a few referrals for you. Try to reach out to these people first, and then maybe we can work together in treating you, whatever that may look like. But just me treating like certain diagnosis, yeah, no, I can't. Especially
that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So bottom line, people, do not neglect therapy. Do not neglect help. I'll say it over and over again. You cannot be your own advisor. So if you're only advising yourself, you're probably going to get into some trouble sooner or later. So you need somebody outside of you. With that being said, obviously Robin is more than qualified. Robin, how can people reach you if they want to know more about what you do, if they want to know about taking advantage of your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can be reached at www.stayanchored with an ed on the end.org. I am on Instagram at Mind and Body GA. I am on Twitter at Mind and Body GA. Okay. And then you can also reach me by email at rminifee. I'll spell that for you. RMINEF as in Frank, EE, okay, at stayanchored.org.
Okay, good deal. You guys reach out. I think we're debunking, that's my new word, hopefully. But we're debunking the myths of therapy. We're debunking the myths of what it means to be mentally and emotionally healthy. You know what I mean? Like, and there's no shame in it. You're not crazy. You're not any of these things. You're just somebody who is interested in becoming a whole person. Just like you would hire a personal trainer to help you with your physical fitness, you need to hire somebody to help you with your internal well-being and your internal fitness as well. So yeah,
I work together with the support that you mentioned. Say like if you have sister, cousin, mom, aunt, I can just go talk to them. Mm-hmm. We all work together to help the person that's sitting across from the therapist. And so I have not had a client that came in and said, I don't know why I did this. This is not helpful. Right. All clients come in and they really find a lot. They get a lot out of therapy, and they're so happy that they made that first step. And that first step is a hard one, but if you make it, you'll never regret it.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, sharing your insights, your ideas, all of that stuff. I know, somebody's going to see this and get a whole lot out of it, because we're all in an interesting time where we have to learn how to better take care of ourselves. I think we're evolving, and in that evolution comes this, taking care of your internal well-being.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. Yeah. I hope someone does take away something that they need to take away, during all of this. And so thank you very much.